Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to stick to Scotland and we're going to go to another brewery that I've never tried anything from before. So these guys are another very new addition to the Scottish beer scene. In that short time though, they've built up a very good reputation for themselves, and it seems that they do a good variety of different styles, which is always a good sign when it comes to new breweries. Now, the beer that we're going to have a look at today is a style that these guys seem to do fairly regularly. It's a very popular style of beer as well, and it's also one that I quite enjoy. So I think this will make a good place to start when it comes to this brewery. And I do have something from the opposite end of the beer spectrum from them to look at as well. So that should give us a good idea of what this brewery is all about. So needless to say, I'm really curious to see what this one's going to have in store for us. It's always cool to introduce new Scottish breweries to you here on the channel. So hopefully it's another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review. And as always, I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to head over to Paisley, which is just on the kind of northwestern side of Glasgow, if I'm not mistaken. And we're going to have a look then at my first beer from Two Towns Down Brewing. So this particular beer is called Televised Mind. It comes in at 7% ABV, and this is a New England hazy, whatever you want to call it, IPA. So yeah, this is a beer that I bought at Ellie's Cellar along in Dollar, which is just a few miles away from where I stay, and I did get one of their stouts as well actually, and that's what we'll be reviewing in a few videos time. You know, if you get an idea of something from the light end of the spectrum and something from the dark end of the spectrum from a brewery, that usually gives you a good idea of what the whole brewery's about. But yeah, 7% New England IPA, this one. This should be pretty nice actually. This was one of two New England IPAs that they had in fact, but I chose this one based on the hop bill. This hop bill just kind of struck my fancy a little bit more than the other one. But let's crack on with this then and see how we get on. Really cool to have Two Towns Down Brewing on the channel for the first time. I've been wanting to see what these guys are all about for a wee while. So, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I'll do in the future from Two Towns Down Brewing. Very first time I'm trying one of their beers on the channel, as I mentioned for you before. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support you give is massively appreciated. And remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the search bar, put your hometown, state, county, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area you search for, they will pop up. Failing that, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Scottish playlist along with a number of others. And you can, of course, check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well, because there's some really interesting stuff on the channel these days, even if I do say so myself. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a wee bit about Two Towns Down Brewing for the very first time. So Two Towns Down Brewing are based in Paisley, just kind of to the northwest of Glasgow, and the brewery was founded back in 2019 by Sandy McKelvey. So he originally studied brewing and distilling at Heriot-Watt University over in Edinburgh before going on to work for the Hanging Back Brew Pub in Edinburgh, and then Black Isle Brewery up just past Inverness, and then Fallon Brewing near Stirling, and eventually for 71 Brewing in Dundee. So obviously he has a very good brewing pedigree behind him. He's been all around Scotland brewing. But after gathering more than a decade of experience, he decided to return to his hometown and found his own brewery there, which also happened to be the first brewery in Paisley. Paisley, of course, is my grandparents' hometown as well, and that was one of the reasons why I really wanted to try something from this brewery. But for the first few years he was Gypsy Brewing, but then at the end of 2022 they moved into their own premises at Backsnedden Street, and they started brewing on their own equipment. But apparently his mum Liz helps with the daily running of the brewery, including the brewing itself, so it's a kind of son-mother operation, which is kind of cool. But apparently when he was working for the other breweries, making his own beer and doing deliveries, his family would say to him that he was just 2 steps away from opening a brewery in Paisley. So this is how the phrase Two Towns Down was born, and he used this as the brewery's name. But the artwork on the cans is Paisley pattern, which was chosen because many of Sandy's family had worked in the Paisley mills over the generations. But these days they've got a tap room at the brewery which opens on weekends, and as of August 2023, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 30 different beers according to Untappd. So yeah, from what I gather, they are very well rounded. They do quite a few different styles. I've seen lagers from them. I've seen different kinds of IPAs. I've also seen a few stouts. I haven't seen too many heavy things from them, I have to admit. So I think a lot of their beer tends to be between like sort of 5% and 7 or 8% actually. That's what I've seen so far, but I might well be wrong on that one. But yeah, as I say, heard very good things about them. And definitely cool to introduce them on the channel for you. I always love introducing new Scottish breweries as well. But yeah, that's everything I can really tell you about Two Towns Down Brewing for the moment. I'm sure we'll have more to add to that in the future. But if you want to learn more, check out the brewery website. Follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the different happenings at the brewery. And you can, of course, check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a wee bit more about all the different beers that they've done. So yeah, let's go on then and have a wee look at the beer itself. So this one is a 440ml can. There you can see the lovely Paisley pattern on the top there. I might need to get one of these. You know, if I saw this, actually, see if I was to see this, I wouldn't have known it was Paisley pattern. I would have thought it was like one of the kind of Persian rug type patterns. So yeah, maybe I need to see about getting myself a nice Paisley pattern rug for my my flat or something. That would be quite cool. But yeah, you can see the Two Towns Down Brewing symbol there. Yeah, I think it's just, yeah, it's 2TD. That's just what it is. I wondered what it was there actually, but yeah, just 2TD, the initials of the brewery. And I have to say, it's a really nice presented can. This one cost me about £5, I think it was. So that translates to about €6, maybe $7, $650 American, and that's somewhere in the region of like, you know, yeah, 65 or 70 Swedish kronor for those of you watching back over there. Plain silver top on it, of course. As we said earlier, it's a 7% New England Hazy, whatever you want to call it, IPA. The malt base in this one is Maris Otter, oats and chit malt. Chit, if I remember correctly, is a variety of wheat. And you've also got, I was thinking spelt as well, but spelt is a very old German wheat. But the hops in this one are Galaxy, Victoria's Secret and Idaho 7, so we're going to get a lovely kind of tropical thing out of this. But Galaxy, of course, is from Australia, 14% alpha acid, big pungent passion fruit, juicy mango, and quite a little bit of pineapple out of that one from my experience. Victoria's Secret is very similar to Galaxy in its profile, but a little bit lower in alpha acid, about 12%. And then Idaho 7's a lovely American hop, big juicy mango with a lot of soft like apricot and papaya and stuff like that, 14% alpha acid again. But yeah, let's get this guy out into the glass then and see what we have. Televised Mind, a New England IPA, 7% ABV from Two Towns Down Brewing over in Paisley. This is very cool. So, quite a full can, I have to say. It's scooshed out a little bit as I opened it up, but there we are. Let's get this guy out into the glass and see what we have. I think we might get a nice head out of this one actually, which is good. There you are. We'll leave a little bit in the can to get some of that head back later on, because we're going to have a look at it, of course. But yeah, before that disappears, because I think it might disappear quite quickly, you can see that the beer poured with about a 2/3 finger of a frothy, I would say more creamy coloured head. I don't think that one's perfect white, but you can see it's a little bit bumpy. You've got kind of medium-sized bubbles there on the surface of the liquid, but a few foamier ones further up. But I have to say, that is, for a 7%er, that's one of the soupiest and gloopiest New Englands I've seen. As Rob from Hopscene would say, haze for days, unclear for years. That is, for a 7%, of the level of haze on this New England IPA is pretty bloody impressive. But yeah, not too much in the way of visible carbonation. This one, just one or two wee bubbles sticking to the glass. At the bottom you can see the head has faded away quite quickly in this one. But in terms of colour, it's quite interesting, this one. This, for me, it's a very light sort of pale yellow. It's very much like a kind of mango, pineapple juice kind of thing. I always like comparing the appearance of New England IPAs to different fruit juices, because that's really just what they remind me of. But remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few things. One, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will affect its colour too. But yeah, it's you don't often have to care about those two variables when it comes to New England hazy IPAs. The level of haze in this one, as I said, is pretty damn impressive. That usually depends on the oak content, the wheat content, and what yeast you use in the beer. But yeah, it looks pretty damn nice, this one, I have to say. So yeah, I do like that, the way that this beer goes together in that sense. Yeah, looks very good. Looks very good. But yeah, definitely one of the soupiest and gloopiest New Englands I've seen at the 7% mark ever, actually. So that's like what I say, it can vary from brewery to brewery and recipe to recipe, but that is pretty damn impressive. So yeah, nothing really surprising about this beer regarding its appearance when you consider what style it is. But I think we can go on and just have a wee look at the aroma of this one and see what it's all about. So let's do this. Sugar it up a wee bit. Oh, aroma-wise, that's pretty nice. Yeah. That is a lovely aroma, actually. Yeah. Gives you everything you'd want from the style. You've got a big kind of smooth, sort of creamy malt backbone to this one. Lovely juicy fruit characters, as I was expecting it would be. It's leaning toward that kind of tropical side of things. Nice floral component to this one. And yeah, it's good. On first impression, I get the feeling that this one's a kind of more, yeah, it's a more oaty. We know the malt base already, but the impression I get out of this one is that it's a more oaty and wheaty leaning aroma. As I've said to you on the channel before, for me when it comes to New England hazies, there are 6 kind of elements to think about when it comes to the more malty side of the beer, if that makes sense. So you've got the kind of yeasty, farmhousey character and the rye leaning grainy side of things. Those two tend to be a bit more prominent in American brewed New England IPAs, if you think about Hill Farmstead, and if you think about Hill Farmstead, Lawson's Finest Liquids, Alchemist as well, they have a little bit more farmhousey kind of yeasty character. That's what the style was like originally. But then you've also got the wheaty bitiness, oaty creaminess, barley malt bread, and the sweeter side of things. And these elements are a little bit more common in the European brewed New England IPAs. That's just the way it's kind of gone. Like the European brewed ones tend to be a bit more like the kind of oaty, creamy tree houses and the more wheaty, bitey trilliums. And that's the kind of impression you get from this beer. For me, it's a bit more oaty and wheaty leaning rather than anything else. But let's have a closer look at that aroma and just see what it's, just kind of see what it's all about. Yeah, so aroma on the malty side of things. Then, if we break this down further, you definitely get a little bit of that kind of fresh white bready bread crust coming out of this one, and that's absolutely lovely with this beer. The fresh white bready bread crust that you get with this is awesome. It's just like, fresh straight out of the bakery. That's really what I get from this one. But on top of that, you get the on top of this, you get a little bit of an almost like wholemeal brown bready character, which is interesting. That's from the Maris Otter. Maris Otter is a very distinctive malt, actually. It gives you this kind of like buttery and slightly biscuity type quality, and you can smell that in this beer. But yet there's a little touch of brown bread in there. There's a big bit of fluffy, fresh white bread coming out of this one. Like a fresh hedgehog roll, something like that. And then above that, you can smell, in the back of the nose, you definitely get a wee touch of wheat, which I'm guessing is the chit. I'm pretty sure chit malt is a type of wheat. But then, yeah, you're also getting a lot of creaminess from the oats. And as I've said with New England IPAs many a time before, the oatiness that you get in these beers is usually an indicator of how fresh the beer is. The creamier the oats are, smelling and taste-wise, that's the younger the beer. The drier they are, the older the beer tends to be. But yeah, the way this one goes together, I think, is really, really nice in that regard. Lovely big kind of creamy oaty characters coming out of this one. You do get a little bit of sweetness on top of this, which, like I say, is the Maris Otter. There's a wee touch of in the New England IPAs, it tends to be more of like a Werther's Original, butter candy, butterscotchy sort of thing. So there's a wee bit of that going on, and definitely a little bit of a lighter kind of biscuity type character in there as well. But as I say, it's a lovely, lovely aroma, this one, so it gets a big thumbs up from me. Yeah, aroma wise, this is really, really very nice. Yeah, malty side of things, very impressed with that. Now on the hoppy side of things then, let's move on to that. So the green component on this one is kind of what you would expect. The green component on this one is kind of what you would expect. As I've said, when it comes to hopping IPAs, there are 3 different types of hoppings you can do. You can do early addition hopping, which takes place usually within the first hour of the wort boil. That's going to give you mainly bitterness and a deep dank aroma, and quite a little bit of deep dank flavour as well. You've got late addition hopping, which is in the last half hour of the wort boil normally. That gives you a wee touch of bitterness, but mainly flavour and aroma, and that gives you quite a bright green component and in aroma and flavour. And then you've got dry hopping, which takes place after the wort boil is complete. That's the same in terms of flavour and aroma. And yeah, the New England IPAs tend to rely on late addition and dry hopping. West Coast IPAs use all 3, which is why they have that deeper, danker, and usually kind of piney, resinous character out of them. But yeah, with this one, you've got a lovely bright green component out of this. It's actually quite wet and leafy to an extent. So yeah, with this one for me, there's a teeny little bit of earthiness to it, but that's very, very minimal. For the most part, it's very bright and very floral. You get a lot of big floral aromaticity coming out of this beer, particularly toward the front of the nose. Beyond that, you've got a lovely kind of grassiness coming out of this one. It's like a wet, freshly cut grass. So yeah, the way that this beer goes together in that sense, I think is really very nice. So yeah, lovely fresh, wetly cut grass, or wet, freshly cut grass. Brain isn't working, too tired, and yeah, just quite wet and leafy. The aroma of this thing's beautiful. You could sit and smell it all day. But I think that's everything we need to say about the green component. Let's have a wee look at the fruity side of things. So for me, the more that I smell of this, it seems the Idaho, the Victoria's Secret and the Galaxy in this one really took the lead early on. But the more that I smell of the beer, the more I'm getting the Idaho 7. The Idaho 7's a bit of a softer hop for me than the other 2, but definitely you're getting everything that you would expect from these 3 hops coming out of this beer. There is a little bit of that more pungent passion fruity type quality. Lots of juicy mango, which is going to come from all 3 hops for sure. Softer apricot in there, a little bit of papaya as well. And I'm getting a wee bit of a more, toward the front of the nose, I get a really kind of juicy pineapple coming out of this one. It smells great, it really does, and it's just a beautiful smelling beer, this one, I have to say that. It's everything I would expect. You know, we've had this style on the channel many, many times before, so the only thing you can really ask for with one of these beers is that they're done well, and I get the impression this one's going to be pretty good actually. So let's just put the rest of it in the glass and see what we have. As I always say though, take a bit of time to enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it. But I think it is about time that we taste this one because the aroma is great. So this one is the Televised Mind, a 7% New England Hazy, my very first beer ever from 2 Towns Down Brewing over in Paisley, my grandparents' hometown. So I'll give a wee toast to my grandparents then. James Boyd Marshall. That's terrible. James Boyd Marshall. I'm thinking of my dad there. That's John Boyd Marshall. James Boyd Marshall and Mary Howie Hartness start. There we go. Slàinte, skål. Ooh, that's nice. I'll tell you something though, it has a good little bit of bite to it, this one. I wonder if I'm drinking this just a little touch too fresh. And I think these are very, very fresh cans. Does it say when it was canned actually? One of the things you have to be careful of with New England IPAs is that you don't drink them overly fresh, because then you get green. You get quite a little bit of green character from this one. So this is best before the 13th of the 12th, 2023. And I'm drinking this one for you on the 18th of August. But I'm pretty sure these cans were very, very fresh in. when I got them. So it might be that I might just be drinking this one a little touch fresh because there's a hell of a lot of floral character in this one. And these, for me, New England IPAs need to sit in the cans for about maybe 2 weeks or so. A little bit, maybe 2 or 3 weeks, just to let the kind of greenness of the hops drop a little bit. But this is very, very fresh actually. So yeah, it has a little bit of that kind of green floral component to it. But once you take the second sip of that and your palate's adjusted to it, it mellows out quite a little bit, so it might well have just been the kind of impact out of this one. But this is very, very fresh. But I'll say straight away, absolutely solid New England IPA, this one. But yeah, maybe should have let this sit for like a week or so before I opened it up. Just wanted to get this brewery on the channel, of course. But yeah, I think this beer is not quite in its prime stage yet, but it's getting there, and you can tell it is very good quality. But yeah, it gives you everything you'd expect of the style. Lovely big green component, really big kind of smooth malty backbone, good little bit of creaminess in there, and you've got all the lovely kind of tropical fruit actually. But at the moment, yeah, it has quite a wee bit of bitterness just from the hopping, I would say. So it's probably just a little touch too fresh, but still not going to complain about that. It's good. It's a really nice beer, this. So thumbs up to 2 Times Down Brewing. Yeah, and if you let it sit on your palate a little bit longer, it just kind of mellows out. It's definitely a kind of impact flavour. It does have quite a bit of bitterness and like hop dustiness to it, just because of what I suspect how fresh it is. But yeah, this is good. So let's do as we always do then, and we'll just break the beer down and describe it in the different parts of the palate, as we often do. So, middle third of your palate then. The backbone of the beer, you've got that lovely kind of fresh, white bready bread crust there, just forming the backbone of the beer. It's almost got a little, it's a very slight toasty character to it, but I think that some of that might be coming from the kind of bitterness of the green part of the beer. But yeah, the way that this one just goes together in that sense is it's really nice. You've got that kind of like fresh, floury, slightly toasted hedgehog roll bread crust there. That's forming the backbone of this beer. Above that, the next layer up, you start to get that slightly sweeter wholemeal brown bread, which is most likely from the Maris Otter malt in this one. So yeah, love a little bit of that brown bready Maris Otter malt coming out of the beer. And above that kind of wholemeal brown bready character, I definitely start to get a little bit more of you start to get that more kind of smooth and slightly denser white bready character. There's fluffy white bread in there, a more dense white bread on top of that. A more dense white bread on top of that, and then that's most likely from the wheat, I would say. The wheat does have a bit of bitiness in this one. The chit, as I say, I remember chit always gives you this sort of wheaty, bitey character to your beer. So yeah, it's quite layered in there, like bread crust, wholemeal, kind of sweeter brown bread, a fluffier white bready character in there, then a denser, there's a denser white bready, wheaty character just pushing its way out of this one too. So yeah, it's really nice in that particular regard, actually. Yeah, on the on top of that, on the oaty side of things, it's interesting. So if you go down the middle line of your palate with this one, you can feel the oats are a little bit more dense for sure. So yeah, if you go down that middle line of your palate in the middle third of your tongue, you can feel the oats are just that little bit more dense, and as you move out toward the edges of the palate, it just gets that little bit more kind of, it just gets that little touch more creamy if that makes sense. With the density in the middle, and it just gets a little bit creamy toward the edge of the palate, and then you get a very slight bit of oaty dryness on the edges of the palate there. But yeah, the way that that goes together, I think, is it's really, really very nice. On top of that oaty side of things, you do get a little bit of biscuit out of this one. There's like a little bit of a McVitie's digestive biscuity character there, but in the dead centre of that middle third of your palate, pardon me, you get this slight Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy sort of thing coming out of the beer. And yeah, the way that that goes together, I think, is really, really quite nice. To be honest, I think that's everything we need to say about the middle third of your palate in this beer. The malty backbone of this is really nicely done, and for me, a lot of people with IPAs, a lot of people underestimate the importance of the yeast and the malt base in these beers. You know, they often just focus on the hops, which I think is kind of wrong. You've got to have a good malt base there to balance the beer out. But yeah, the middle third of your palate in this beer is solid. I do like that. So yeah, I think we can move on to the back third of your palate. Because I often say the back third of your palate is going to give you similar flavours, just at different intensities. And you have to remember that general trend with your palate, that the further forward you are, the sweeter the flavours are, the further back you are, generally speaking, the more dry and bitter the flavours are. So yeah, let's look at that. So for me, the back third of your palate, then you've got that border region between middle and back third of your palate. You get a nice little bit of bready build up in there. You can feel you've got a nice little bit of a kind of wholemeal brown bready sort of thing. This one, so yeah, I love a little bit of wholemeal kind of brown bready character in the base. Above that, you've got a little bit more of a, yeah, you do get a little bit more of a kind of white bready character in there. But then, yeah, if you move into the back third of your palate, you can feel that the bread crusty backbone is a little bit drier and more. It's a little bit drier and a wee bit more kind of grainy almost. Then you can feel that the wholemeal brown bready layers in there. It's a little bit. It has got a wee bit of sweetness to it almost, but you can feel it's a little bit lighter and more airy. You've almost got a little bit of crackery character on top of the bread crust actually. So yeah, bread crust. A little bit of cream cracker almost. The wholemeal brown bready layer just feeling that a little bit lighter and more airy. Then you've got the fluffy white bready layer sitting above that, which feels lighter and more airy again. Then you can feel the wheaty character just creeping over the top of that. The chip malt giving you that big kind of wheaty bitey character, which I think is really nice in this one. It goes together really well. And then above all of that, you start to get the yeasty notes out of the beer. So for me, the yeasty character in this beer is quite interesting. Like, it's a bit more of a kind of farmhousey bread. So yeah, you've got a lovely little bit of a kind of farmhousey. Yeah, you've got a little bit of that sort of farmhousey, white bready character coming out of this one. So I'd say you've got this denser, like woody, like sort of crackery, grainy, white bready character in there on the yeast. It just feels like it's wrapped a little bit in honeycomb almost, and that's what sits on top of everything on that back third of your palate. So for me, definitely you can feel that the back third of your palate, the flavour is taller. Then as you come further forward into the middle third of your tongue, it just condenses down and sort of squashes together a little bit. So yeah, the way that that goes together, I think, is really quite nice. I think that's everything we need to say about the malty and yeasty side of the beer. Hoppy side of things then. Back corners of the palate, you've got a nice little bit of earthiness in there, but not too much. When you move further forward from this one, you start to get the big floral aromaticity out of this beer really quite quickly. And it's almost like kind of dusty. Like I said, I do suspect I'm drinking this beer maybe like a week or two too early. Unless the beer is, of course, brewed to have a little bit more bitterness to it. And in that case it would make sense. But I just get the impression, I'm pretty sure these cans were very, very fresh. And with a New England IPA, you should let it sit for, yeah, like 2 weeks or something like that in the can before you drink it. 2 weeks, it should sit in the can 2 weeks from canning date just to mellow out a wee bit. That's just my opinion. But yeah, you can feel very quickly you get a kind of floral, spicy, almost like hop, dusty type quality out of this one as you move forward toward the front corners of the palate. But round the front curve of your tongue, you get that little bit of lighter, sort of grassy type character coming out of this one, which is really nice. And then, yeah, that goes together really, really quite nicely for sure. The green component in this beer is nice, but like I say, there's just something telling me I'm drinking this beer maybe 2 weeks too early. I think this one is very fresh and it would mellow out and be even better a couple of weeks down the line. But yeah, I think that covers the green component. We can have a look at the front third of your palate then, and the fruity side of things. So, border region between front third and middle third of your palate. You do get a nice little bit of bready build up in there, a little bit of wholemeal brown bread in the base, and a lovely white bready character sitting above that, which is great. So yeah, lovely kind of, there's a lovely big kind of white bready type character to this one in the base. So you get a wee bit of the bread crust, some of the sweetness actually, a lot of a sweet wholemeal brown bready thing there, then a smooth white bready character above that. Then you get that really nice kind of oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. And this one is giving you everything you'd expect in that particular regard too. So at the back of that front third of your palate, yeah, there is a wee touch of that slightly stronger grapefruit in there. You get a little bit of a zippy peach out of this one as well. Really quite, yeah, but in front of the grapefruit you get that juicier peach. And then you get a wee bit more pungent passion fruit, but as you move further forward, you start to get the really juicy mango out of this one, which I think is mainly going to be the Idaho 7 and the Victoria's Secret that give you that. The slightly more pungent fruits are going to come from the Victoria's, from the Galaxy, sorry, the grapefruit and the peach I think are going to come from Galaxy for the most part. But yeah, like I say, as you move further forward, juicy passion fruit, lots of juicy mango in the middle. You've got the apricot-y notes underneath and a wee bit more of a softer papaya as you move right toward the front of the tongue. But then yeah, juicy mango, and then a bit of a really juicy, yeah, a little bit of a kind of really juicy, yeah, a little bit of a really juicy, kind of just pineapple, yeah, big juicy, slightly more oily pineapple toward the front of the palate in this beer. It's really great actually, I really like how this goes together. So yeah, for me, the fruity side of this beer I think is really nice, very soft, very juicy, and yeah, really soft, really juicy, and yeah, really tropical leaning, which, you know, from the hops that are in this one, that's kind of what I expected, to be honest with you. The other one was going to be quite orangey leaning. I think there was like Sabro and Mosaic in that, along with something else, I forget. But this is just the one, the combination just was a wee bit more appealing to me as I saw it. And I like the name of this one, I have to say as well. Televised Mind was really good. But yeah, the fruity side of things, very well done. I think we can round off then with a wee quick look at the mouthfeel. So for me, mouthfeel wise, this beer, it's pushing toward the top end of mid-body. The body in this is really creamy and smooth and kind of silky. It's got an impressive body to it for a 7%er, I would say. It's almost as thick as some of the doubles that I've had, which is really quite nice. In terms of the bitterness and things in this one, like I say, I get quite a bit of bitterness out of this beer. But I suspect at the moment that's kind of like hop burn. I think, as I say, I'm just drinking this beer 2 weeks or so too early, because these cans I know are very, very fresh. So yeah, this beer, I would say to 2 Times Down Brewing, if they're going to put their IPAs out, hold on to the cans for like an extra week and just let the beer mellow out a little bit. Plan for that in your scheduling, because yeah, this beer does have a wee bit of like, there is a wee touch of hop burn to it, a little bit of that kind of stronger bitterness, but that's easy enough to fix. It's hardly a criticism. The malt base in this one, as we said, it's got a lovely kind of bit. There's a bit of graininess underneath, lovely smoothness in the middle, and a wee bit of creaminess on top. Little touch of sweetness in there as well. The IBU count of this beer, it feels like it's about 50, 60-ish because of that green component, but I'm sure it would mellow out a little bit later on. And the fruity side of the beer, it's just lovely and juicy. And like I said, I think this is a really nicely done New England IPA, this one. That just needs a little bit more time to mellow out. So yeah, I think we can leave it at that for this one. This has been a really interesting beer to try, but it's given me a very good first impression definitely a very good first impression of Two Towns Down Brewing, and I look forward to trying the stout that I've got from them as well. I actually bought the stout. I think I bought that the last time I was home, but just never got around to reviewing it, and I bought this one this time. So yeah, curious to see the difference between the two. But I think we can leave it at that for this one. So it's been really cool to try, and a very good introduction to Two Towns Down Brewing as well. So yeah, this one was the Televised Mind, a 7% New England Hazy, whatever you want to call it, IPA. A really nicely done beer, this one, and I'm glad that I got to try this. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Two Towns Down Brewing are as well, and we will be returning to these guys in the next wee while, and you'll see another review up on the channel from them. But thank you for watching. Check out my social media, check out their social media, and I'll see you guys again. Slàinte, skål, and cheers.